Good evening, friend. Before you turn off the lamp tonight, I want you to sit with me for just a little while, because what I'm about to walk you through tonight could quietly change how your mind feels tomorrow morning. Not next year. Tomorrow morning. Here's something almost nobody has ever explained to you properly. The hour before you fall asleep is not wasted time. It is working time for your brain. What you put into your body in that final stretch of the evening either feeds the slow, quiet decline so many of us have come to accept as normal aging, or it actively gives your brain the raw material it needs to repair itself while you rest. This is not a theory. This is how your body has worked all along. Most of us were simply never told. My name is Dr. Joseph Collins, and I am a medical health educator. For years, I have sat with patients and with their adult children, listening to the same fear over and over again. A misplaced word, a forgotten name. A pause in conversation that lasts just a little too long. And almost every single time, the same question follows. Is this just what getting older looks like, or is something actually wrong? I want to be honest with you the way I wish more of us in medicine were. Your doctor is not failing you on purpose. A 15-minute appointment was never enough time to talk about food, sleep, and brain repair in the same breath. So tonight, I'm giving you the time that appointment never could. Before we go any further, I have to tell you about a finding that stopped me cold the first time I came across it. Researchers studying older adults found that specific nutrition eaten in the final 90 minutes before sleep measurably improved next-day memory recall compared to those who ate the wrong things, or nothing at all, before bed. We are not talking about a small shift. We're talking about the difference between walking confidently into a room and remembering exactly why you walked in, and standing there, frustrated, reaching for a thought that won't come. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through 7 ordinary foods sitting on shelves in your own grocery store right now. That real research has tied to memory repair, slower brain aging, and sharper recall. And I want to tell you something now, so you carry it with you the entire way through. The 7th food on this list, the very last one I'm going to share with you, is one that most people over 70 have spent years actively avoiding, on the advice of people who meant well but didn't have the full picture. When I get there, I think it's going to surprise you. So stay with me all the way to the end, because that final food is the one I recommend most often and most urgently to the people who sit across from me. Before we begin, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want your answer. Drop a comment below and tell me your age, and tell me honestly whether you, or someone you love and care for, has noticed any change in memory or mental sharpness these past few years. I read these comments myself, every single one, and they shape exactly what I bring to you next. And if you are here today not for yourself, but because you are caring for a parent or a spouse, I want you to know this video is for you too. Everything I share tonight, you can use for the both of you. One more thing before we start. Because I believe trust matters more than persuasion, what I share with you tonight comes from published research and clinical experience. But it is general education, not a personal medical prescription. Your own body, your own medications, your own health history matter, and a conversation with your own doctor still belongs in this picture. I tell you that not to undercut what we're about to cover, but because a doctor who hides nothing from you, including the limits of what a video can tell you, is the only kind of doctor worth listening to. Now, let's begin. We are going in order, building from food 7 up to the single most powerful food on this entire list, the one I promised to tell you about, the one most people have wrongly been told to fear. Food number 7 is the simple oat. Not the sugary instant packets lined up at the grocery store, but plain rolled oats, eaten warm about an hour before bed. Oats carry a steady, slow-releasing form of carbohydrate that does something most people never connect to brain health. It supports a smooth, gentle release of insulin overnight. And a calmer overnight insulin pattern has been linked in research to better next-day memory performance in adults over 60. Think of your overnight blood sugar like the tide. A wild, jagged tide disturbs everything resting near the shore. A slow, steady tide lets repair work happen undisturbed. Oats help keep that tide calm. I had a patient, a woman named Eleanor, 76 years old, a retired librarian who told me she always felt foggy in the mornings, like she was wading through water just to get her thoughts moving. We added a small bowl of plain oats to her evening routine. Nothing else changed, and within a few weeks she told me that fog had noticeably lifted. I share that not as a guarantee, because every person is different, but because it reflects exactly what the research on overnight glucose stability would predict. A half cup of plain cooked oats with a small spoon of ground flaxseed stirred in for healthy fat, about an hour before bed, is enough. Food number 6 is the kiwi fruit. Most people think of kiwi as nothing more than a sweet tart snack, but researchers have found that kiwi is unusually rich in serotonin precursors, the same chemical pathway your brain relies on to produce melatonin and to settle into the deep sleep stages where memory consolidation actually happens. A study following adults who ate kiwi before bed found measurable improvements in sleep quality, and sleep quality is directly tied to how well your brain files away the day's memories overnight. One kiwi, eaten whole about 30 to 45 minutes before bed, paired with your oats from a moment ago, begins to build something real. Not a random list of foods, but a routine working together, each piece supporting the next. Food number 5 is the walnut. And I want to be specific here because not all nuts are equal in this conversation. Walnuts carry something rare, a plant-based omega-3 fat called alpha-linolenic acid, which your body uses as raw material to build and maintain a different fat called DHA, the single most important structural fat in your brain. Picture your brain's wiring system the way you'd picture the wiring in an old house. DHA is the insulation wrapped around every wire. When that insulation wears thin, signals don't travel cleanly anymore. Thoughts slow down. Words take longer to surface. After the age of 60, your body's ability to convert plant fats like the ones in walnuts into usable DHA drops sharply, which is exactly why timing and consistency matter so much here. Research following older adults found that those who regularly ate walnuts scored meaningfully better on memory and processing speed tests than those who rarely did. A small handful, about an ounce, roughly a dozen walnut halves, eaten an hour before bed, is enough to begin supporting that wiring overnight. Now here's where it gets even better, and this is something almost no one talks about. Walnuts and the oats from Food 7 work together. The healthy fat in walnuts actually helps your body absorb fat-soluble compounds more efficiently, which means pairing a small handful of walnuts with your evening oats does more for you than eating either one alone. This isn't a list of 7 separate ideas. By the time we finish tonight, you'll have one complete evening routine where each piece quietly strengthens the one before it. Food number 4 is the egg, and I know that might surprise you because eggs have spent decades being unfairly feared. Eggs are one of the richest natural sources of a nutrient called choline, and choline is the direct building block your brain uses to manufacture acetylcholine, the chemical messenger most directly responsible for learning and memory formation. Without enough choline, your brain is, quite literally, short on the raw material it needs to file new memories away. Research has shown that adults with higher choline intake performed significantly better on memory and cognitive testing than those with lower intake, and most adults over 60 fall well short of what their brain actually needs. One whole egg, soft-boiled or scrambled gently, eaten as a small evening snack about 90 minutes before bed, goes a long way toward closing that gap. And to anyone who's been told for years to avoid the yolk entirely, I want to gently say this. The cholesterol fear around eggs has been significantly overstated for most people, and the yolk is where nearly all of that choline lives. Avoiding it means avoiding the very part that helps your memory. I want to pause here and tell you about a patient I think about often. His name was Walter, 73 years old, a retired postal worker from Ohio. Walter's daughter brought him to see me because she'd noticed him repeating the same questions within the same conversation, sometimes within minutes of each other. Walter himself was frightened, but he was also proud, and admitting that fear hadn't come easily to him. We built a simple evening routine together, the kind we're building right now. Walnuts, eggs, oats, nothing complicated, nothing expensive. 8 weeks later, his daughter came back with him, and she was the one who got emotional, not Walter. She told me their phone calls felt like talking to her father again, not like repeating herself 3 times a conversation. I share Walter's story not as a promise, but because every person's path is different, and I never want to suggest otherwise. I share it because it's exactly what the research we've covered tonight would lead you to expect, and because I know so many of you watching tonight are not just worried about your own memory. You're worried about a parent or a spouse sitting in the next room. If that's you, please know I see you too, and everything in this routine works for the both of you, together. If what you've heard tonight is giving you even a small sense of hope, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you'd take a moment to like this video and subscribe. I post a new video like this every single week, built entirely around helping people like you protect the independence and the sharpness you've worked your whole life to keep. Every single subscription helps me reach someone else sitting alone tonight, frightened the way Walter once was, who has never been handed this information either. Food number 3 brings us into something a little different, something almost spiritual in how long it's been part of human life. Raw honey. Not the clear, heavily processed honey sitting in most kitchen cupboards, but raw, unfiltered honey. Raw honey contains natural compounds that research has linked to the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the part of your brain most responsible for forming new memories. For decades, scientists believed the adult brain could no longer grow new cells at all. We now know that's untrue, and we know certain foods can either encourage or quietly shut down that process. Raw, processed sugar shuts it down. Raw honey appears to encourage it. 1 to 2 teaspoons stirred into warm herbal tea about 30 minutes before bed is all you need, and it pairs beautifully with everything we've already built tonight. We are almost there. 2 foods remain, and the very next one is going to challenge something you've likely believed for years. We've come a long way together tonight. Oats, kiwi, walnuts, eggs, and raw honey. 5 pieces of one evening routine, each one quietly supporting the next. Now we arrive at the 2 most important foods on this entire list, including the one I promised would surprise you. Let's finish what we started. Food number 2 is something most of us think of only as a vegetable side dish, but I want you to think of it differently tonight. Leafy greens, specifically spinach and Swiss chard, eaten lightly cooked in the evening. These greens carry a nutrient called lutein, which most people associate only with eye health, but research has found something remarkable. Lutein accumulates in brain tissue too, particularly in the regions responsible for reasoning and memory, and higher lutein levels in older adults have been linked to brain function that more closely resembles someone years younger. Picture lutein as a protective coating, the way a good varnish protects wood from years of wear. It doesn't repair damage that's already deep, but it slows the wear from continuing, and over months and years, that difference adds up. A small side of lightly cooked spinach or chard, about an hour before bed, with a little olive oil to help your body absorb the lutein properly, is enough. And here's something worth knowing. The fat from the walnuts we talked about earlier helps this absorption too. This routine keeps reinforcing itself, piece by piece, the longer you stay with it. And now, finally we arrive at food number 1. The food I told you, right at the very beginning, that most people over 70 have spent years being told to avoid. That food is fatty fish, specifically wild salmon, sardines, or mackerel, eaten as a modest evening meal a couple of hours before bed. I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You've been warned about cholesterol. You've been told eating before bed is a bad habit. You've heard fish in the evening framed as something to be cautious of. I'm asking you gently to set that worry aside for just a few minutes, because the gap between what most people have been told and what the actual research shows has rarely been wider than it is right here. Fatty fish is the richest natural source of 2 omega-3 fats, DHA and EPA, that aren't simply helpful for your brain, they are structural to it. Your brain is built largely from fat, and DHA makes up the single largest share of that fat. Every memory you hold lives inside a connection between brain cells, and every one of those connections depends on DHA to stay intact. Here is the part that matters most for you specifically. After the age of 60, your body's ability to convert plant-based fats, even the good ones from walnuts and flaxseed, into usable DHA drops substantially. That means for most of us past 60, the only reliable way to keep your brain properly supplied with DHA is to eat it directly, and the richest source of all is fatty fish. Research following hundreds of older adults found that those who ate fish at least once a week showed brain function more typical of someone roughly a decade younger than those who rarely or never ate it. Not a small difference, a meaningful one. And the timing matters even more than you'd expect, because while you sleep, your brain runs a natural, overnight cleaning process, clearing away the waste and buildup tied to cognitive decline. That cleaning process works far more efficiently when your brain cell membranes are well supplied with DHA. Eating fatty fish in the evening means your brain has exactly what it needs, right when that cleaning crew is working hardest. Wild salmon also carries a compound that gives it its colour, one of the most powerful antioxidants known, and it specifically protects the tiny energy centres inside your brain cells, the parts that quietly begin to slow down after 65. Fatty fish is also one of the best sources of vitamin B12, a nutrient a striking number of adults over 60 are quietly deficient in, often without ever being tested for it. And that deficiency alone has been tied to memory loss and brain shrinkage. A modest 4-ounce serving of salmon baked or gently steamed 2 or 3 times a week, eaten a couple of hours before bed, may be the single most important habit on this entire list. So there it is. Oats, kiwi, walnuts, eggs, raw honey, leafy greens, and fatty fish. 7 ordinary foods sitting in grocery stores everywhere, working together not as separate tricks, but as one evening routine your brain can lean on every single night. You don't need a prescription to begin. You don't need anyone's approval. You only need tonight. Before I let you go, I want to say this one more time, because it matters more than anything else I've shared. This routine is built on real, published research and on what I've genuinely seen work for the people who sit across from me. But it is education, not a personal prescription. If you're taking blood thinners, if you have a fish allergy, or if you simply aren't sure how something here fits with your own health, a short conversation with your own doctor is worth having before you begin. I tell you that not to take anything away from tonight, but because the only kind of trust worth earning is the honest kind. And if you're watching this not just for yourself, but for a parent or a spouse you love and worry about, I hope tonight gave you something real to bring home to them too. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. If even one part of tonight gave you a little hope, please share this with someone you love. Press that like button and subscribe so we can keep building this together, one evening at a time. I'll see you in the next one.